Your Olympic hero has arrived. It's true, it's true.
You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another movie review. As I said, I'm going to try to do a movie review every night for the next few nights to finish out the week. And today I'll be reviewing There Will Be Blood, which I briefly talked about in my monthly movie recap, but it's actually the one I talked the least about because I planned to do this full review in the first place. So there will be spoilers in this video, just a heads up on that. But There Will Be Blood stars Daniel Day-Lewis in the role of Daniel Plainview, who's an oil man. He's an oil baron going around trying to make his fortune. The man is an objectivist to his core. He is absolutely, hardcore objectivist. He's also a complete and total sociopath for the most part, and a total narcissist. I love him. But the whole premise of the movie is he cons this town into giving him the land for cheap, so that he can drill for oil. And then while he's there, there's also a church there that's kind of culty, who's also kind of conning the town, to be honest. Early on in the movie, a guy dies during an accident at one of Daniel's wells, and Daniel just kind of takes the guy's son as his own, and names him H.W. Plainview. As the movie goes on, Daniel gets into this town through getting information from this guy named Paul, whose twin brother actually runs the town. His twin brother's name is Eli. They're played by the same actor, so Corbin thought for some reason I'd be unable to tell the difference, but they tell you straight up who's who, so I guess I'm just better at paying attention than he is. But a lot of the movie has Daniel just kind of bullying and demeaning people. It's pretty fun, honestly. There's a scene where he just kind of bullies the shit out of Eli and smears a bunch of, mud in his face, and then Eli gets angry and then just goes home and takes it out by beating the shit out of his elderly father. Speaking of that elderly father, he also was, said to have, hit his daughter. And then Daniel's talking to the daughter while the father's still there, and he's talking about, your dad doesn't still hit you, does he? There'll be no more hitting, will there? And, the dad's just sitting there listening to him say that. But then there's this big-ass explosion on the oil rig while they're drilling, and it wounds, I think it kills a few people. Yeah, it does kill a few people. And it makes H.W. completely deaf. In addition to that, a guy comes by claiming to be Daniel's brother. It was pretty obvious he wasn't going to be as soon as the guy showed up. But H.W. sees it in his journal, and then, sets fire to the cabin to try and tell them? What a weird way to try and communicate. At least I assume that's what he did. I can think of no other fucking motivation for why he started that fire. And then Daniel leaves him on a train. H.W. does go and get training to learn sign language. Daniel finds out that the guy who claimed to be his brother wasn't his brother and just straight up fucking kills him and buries him in a shallow grave. And one of the guys from the town finds out about it. They eventually negotiate, and Daniel just kind of drains the oil out from under the ground where that guy is without having to buy his land through drainage, which will be brought up later after the time skip, because there is actually a time skip in this movie as well. Speaking of that time skip, after the incident with the explosion, him killing his fake brother, his son going deaf, and him sending him away to learn sign language, there's a time skip, and Daniel Plainview was successful in getting all the money he wanted, and he buys this big-ass mansion with a bowling alley in it, and he gets to live on his own. Daniel Plainview makes it pretty clear that he hates people, and he just wants to live on his own away from people, and he doesn't want anyone else to succeed except him. His son, H.W., gets married and shows back up to try and reconnect with his father and let him know he wants to start his own business down in Mexico. And then Daniel reveals, you know what, you're just a competitor to me now. You're not even really my son. You're just a bastard from a basket. And then says, there's none of me in you. And then, of course, H.W. says, well, good, and then leaves. He also yells bastard from a basket at him multiple times as he's walking away, but it's like he's deaf. He's clearly not going to hear him yelling this at him. Then Eli shows up and tries to convince Daniel to buy the rest of the land out there, but Daniel, first off, makes him beg, and then makes him admit he himself is a fraud and renounce his religion, only to reveal it doesn't matter, that land's been drained. Drainage, Eli, drainage! If you have a milkshake, and I have a straw that reaches across the room, I drink your milkshake. And then, of course, Eli's like, well, how about money? Give me money. And he's like, your brother's way more successful. Paul was the good one. He has his own little company now, which I find a bit odd that he's okay with Paul having his own oil company, but not his, quote-unquote son. Why was it okay for Paul to succeed, but not HW? Is it because he wanted HW to take over the family business or continue working for him? Or was he just saying the Paul thing to toy with Eli? Whatever. He then bludgeons Eli to death using a fucking bowling pin, and that's the end of the movie. But yeah, it's a really good movie. It's really interesting character. Daniel Plainview is honestly one of my favorite characters now. I love him. I like the objectivism and the Machiavellianism and stuff within him as a character. It's a very interesting character. Obviously, he doesn't represent a moral person in a lot of ways. But it is interesting, and you do kind of root for him. Like, I mean, I was rooting for him the whole movie, despite how much of a kind of sleazeball he can be. But that's what I love about him. He's a clever trickster, right? He'll get what he wants, and he wants to succeed. It's not like a super action-packed movie or anything, although there is action, with the explosion and him killing a couple people in the movie. And it's actually based off a book called Oil by Upton Sinclair, which Upton Sinclair was a hardcore socialist, so I'm sure the book is shit because it's also where his son is the main character and sympathizing with the socialist workers, so I'm sure that the movie is better than the book just from hearing that information. Because the movie is one where I'm rooting for Daniel Plainview. I like him a lot as a character. Obviously, I don't agree with everything he does, but it's a good movie. I quite enjoyed it. I actually own it on a Flex Play disc, which obviously doesn't work because it's expired. Flex Plays, if you don't know, are self-destructing DVDs that were essentially made as rentals that you didn't have to return. But anyway, that's all I really had to say today. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Have a good one. Toodles!